Rusty, how's your day going aside from, talking about yourself a lot and dealing with media people?
My day's going great, man. I took my daughter to school this morning and about to go to the North Carolina mountain for a couple days and business is going good. Life is good. I'm in a good mood, Darren. Thanks for asking.
I'm glad to hear that. Now, you're one of those people where I've been aware of everything you're doing and have been doing for decades, yet I never connected the dots and went, that's Rusty. So, for
Uh,
example, besides being a Hootie fan for decades, interviewing Russ Taff a couple weeks ago, oh, that's on your label. Interviewing Madeline Rose, oh, that's your label. The solo albums by Mark and Sony from Hootie, oh, that's your label. So,
yeah.
where I'm going with all this is you find that some artist managers are happy in the background, and then there's other people like Doc McGee who put themselves in the video intro before Kiss hits the stage. So, are you content with the idea of having that success that's kind of low key?
Um, I That's a great question. I certainly have an ego the size of a mountain, and I try to keep it in in containment as much as I possibly can. But I tell you, as you get older and you shift your priorities, and um, it's funny. If I was at a show and if an artist that I manage was thanking people in their career for something, or if they were on an award show thanking people, if they didn't say my name, my feathers will be ruffled for weeks at a time. Now,
Gotcha.
I guess I am now more content to just kind of be in the background, and I'm proud of the work that we do for the artists that we work with, and I know when we're doing a good job. I've been around long enough to recognize, success versus maybe something that we could have done better. So, yeah, it's not near as important as it used to be to kind of be recognized for the things that I do. Our recognition comes in referrals, people that want to work, call us and say, "Hey, we want to be on your label. We've seen what the work you do, and we want to be a part of your team." So that suffices these days.
These days, pretty much everyone gets a documentary, and now artist managers get their documentaries. I loved the Shep Gordon one that Mike Myers did. Not sure if you saw that one, but was there ever a Rusty documentary in the talks or in the works?
No, but there was a VH1 Behind the Music on Hootie and the Blowfish, and I was in that. And when Clarence Spalding started managing Darius, um, they they sent some people out to do a Hootie documentary, and they interviewed me for that for a couple of days. But no, there's never been a Rusty Harmon documentary, and I think the world's okay with that.
In terms of behind the music, I mean, to weirdly name drop, I've done work over the years for David Krebs, who I think like three or four behind the musics he's been in where the artist peaked under him and then it fell. But he got severely misquoted in behind the music. I think that led to a lawsuit. Your case, no lawsuits from behind the music, correct?
No, the
Okay.
one thing that I said on my Behind the Music was something that the band and me used to talk about all the time, and that was they one of the questions they asked was, the Hootie backlash. They asked about how, because people today don't remember, certainly this generation isn't aware of it, but Hootie was really big for from like 94, 95, 96, and we
Oh, yeah.
we ended up having we ended up having, you know, five singles off that first album, and then the next album we literally put out the second records to stop the first record. We could have kept going, and we made a conscious decision to go ahead and put that second record out. But on Behind the Music, they asked me, what I thought about the Hootie backlash, and I said, look, I said, everybody was tired of Hootie at that point. I said, hell, I was tired of Hootie at that point, and I think that they pulled that quote out when they were advertising it, so it was like former manager says he was tired of Hootie. Like, no, 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 no. That's not how it
That's a
was.
misquoting. That's a misquoting. And the last Hootie thing before I talk about Rusty more is to me. So I was watching Letterman the night. that all that happened. Coincidentally, I don't know why I was watching Letterman that night, but that was kind of the start of everything from my perspective. And I was a big fan. I owned Crack Rear View and all that kind of stuff. And then I remembered Hootie was kind of a joke. And I said that because I interned at Atlantic Records, and you'd be on these college marketing calls and you'd hear like Hootie as a sub label, and the people are going, not realizing Jump Little Children is amazing and all that kind of stuff. But I remember the backlash against Hootie pretty much was still going during the Ted movie. That when the puppet or whatever starts singing, I only want to be with you, people are still laughing at Hootie. But for the last 10 to 15 years, it's like none of that ever happened. Do you remember when the backlash kind of lifted?
Oh, I mean, there was no, not really, because I stopped working with the band in 2001, and at that point we were still pretty much in the thick of it. And the first record sold 16 million copies, the second record sold 4 million copies, the third record sold 1 million copies. And by anybody else's standards, that's those are all
Yeah,
enormously
amazing.
successful records. Yeah.
Yeah,
But you look at the downward trajectory, and so everybody was quick to point that out. And Darius was in the middle of making his solo R&B record that was supposed to be a year-long process. It ended up being a little over a 2-year process, and that record ended up not coming out on Atlantic Records. And there was just a lot of inner turmoil going on around that, and
sure.
lack of ticket sales, lack of record sales. And so when I left the band, it was just I was ready to leave. I was ready to get back to North Carolina and kind of do what I wanted to do at the time. I just did not I didn't take the time to stop and really care about what was happening with the Hootie guys and the backlash, but I just knew that there was a lot of inner turmoil and a lot of issues going
Sure.
on with the band, and the backlash was the least of my concerns at that point. I am really, really happy all these years later that the band, obviously, the success that Darius has been well warranted, and he's an
Yep.
icon in the country music scene now. And I live in Nashville, and we run into each other from time to time, and I'm really, really happy for his success. But I'm also happy that the band's been able to get back together and have these successful, national and international tours, and people. It's kind of isn't it kind of like the superstar football player that gets arrested for domestic battery, and then a year and a half later he's catching touchdowns in the Super Bowl, and everybody forgets.
If this were
um,
behind the music, they would have used that as the
that would
coming
have been the
up.
quote.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So let's don't do that, Darren.
So back to you and all this. I mentioned a couple of the artists who are on your label, and it includes some Hootie related solo projects. So it's amazing to see that you kept up the relationships that you did, because a lot of artists don't ever want to talk to their first manager ever again. What's coming up for the label in the coming months?
Well, I'm really happy with the way that the label's evolved, but I do want to say that Sony and Mark, like Sony's been sober now for going on 15 or 16 years,
Sure.
and I've been sober for 7 years. And Sony was a bit like he helped coach me through sobriety in the early stages, and so he's been a big part of my personal recovery and my path since then. So he and I have stayed friends through all this. We own mountain property together, and we've been friends for a very long time. So it was really good to be able to put his records out. And then I think that because of the success we had with Sony, Mark was like, "Hey, let's put out a record," and then we had some success with his record too. So that's all
Hmm.
been good. But I'm happy to say, as far as the label goes, we've really found our niche, and what that niche is like I love putting out artist records, and we've signed more than I guess close to 70 artists at this point, and put out more than 600 singles. But in the last year and a half or 2 years or so, we have found ourselves like all these people now that own masters, that want to put out records, but they don't necessarily want to start a record label. Like, they don't want to staff up. If you go
Hmm.
hire a president or a general manager, a product manager, a head of marketing, a social media, a digital advertising rep, content creator, like, you blink and you're at two or three or $400,000 in
Oh yeah.
payroll for a record label. And what my record label does, so our label's called Veer Music. We are a sub label under the ADA umbrella. ADA is the independent distribution arm of Warner Music.
Yeah.
So my relationship with Atlantic Records all these years later came back to be this label. I did my deal through Atlantic, and Craig Cowman at the time was still the CEO of Atlantic, and he helped me put the deal together. But what we found is that those people, whether it's managers, booking agents, publishers, anybody that owns masters that's looking to put out records and do it efficiently, effectively, but without spending two, three, $400,000 on payroll, we put out the records. So we are the distribution. We do all of the marketing, and then we outsource label services per individual artist. So because not every artist is the same. Not every artist wants radio. Not every artist needs social media management. Some people are really good at social media, but somebody maybe doesn't know a publicist, but they need a publicity campaign for 2 or 3 months around the release of the record. So we'll go find a publicist that makes sense for them, and yeah. So we've now done that for I think we have 5 labels under our umbrella, and we're probably in talks with 3 or 4 others at the moment. So my priority for Veer at the moment is building out record labels for groups of people that own masters that are looking to put out records effectively, efficiently, without breaking the bank.
So if I'm regurgitating what you just said in a positive way, you're not burnt out on the music business, you're not running for the hills, and you're not one of those business people who goes, the future is tech, I want to be tech. You are still in the music business.
Man, I love it. I love everything about the industry. I still love developing artists. I feel like all these years later, if Kenny Chesney or Keith Urban or somebody like that called and they wanted to talk to me about management, I would gladly jump in the middle of an entity that's already up and running and fully developed. But for some reason, God reached down upon me and said, "Hey, you're going to be responsible for developing careers over the years." And I've embraced it. I love developing careers, and that's kind of morphed into. I teach at Lipscomb University here in Nashville, and working with all of those. Like, they have a great, thriving music program, and working with all those kids. We actually have a record label at Lipscomb where Veer is the label at Lipscomb is called Imagine House, and they sign Russ Taff was on Imagine House Records. He was one of the first artists, but they're also putting out students that are making records, and Veer is the back end label for Imagine House at Lipscomb University. So being able to work with all those kids, and I teach a music marketing class, a record label operations class, a concerts and live venue class. So being able to talk to 18, 19, 20-year-old kids consistently about releasing music the right way, touring the right way, taking advantage of brand partnerships while you're on the road, just all the different options for distribution of music, not just us, but all the different, the differences between, DistroKid, TuneCore, and 1RPM and Symphonic and Empire, all those people, like, just letting them know the differences between all of them and how they all work. So yeah, I love the music industry. I love the way it's evolved. I'm a big fan of the digital technology. I love the DSPs. I think it's great that me and you could write a song this morning and tonight it could be on Spotify. How wonderful is that?
Yeah, so you are embracing the new stuff right there, the new frontier. Yet you did have a Grammy nod for the 2024 Grammys with the Rock for Children Solid Rock Revival, where you got some I'm assuming older influences from your childhood, from Alice Cooper and DMC and all that. So
man, I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm super excited about that. We got to put out an Alice Cooper record, and Slash was on that record, and
Rob Halford,
from Judas Priest was on the record, and DMC, and so yeah, we got to put it, and then it got nominated for a Grammy, and I was so hopeful. Alice Cooper's never won a Grammy, and I was thinking he might get the sympathy vote, but it didn't happen. He got beat out by somebody else for the children's rock record. But that was just great that we were nominated for a Grammy. So yeah, it's been pretty awesome.
So that said, with Veer, very difficult to pigeonhole the label because if you have a friendly album that's hard rock right there, you have gospel related projects, you have country. Hootie, who somehow magically get pigeonholed into country, yet their solo albums have nothing to do with country. Is there a particular genre you're looking towards, or is it just if it's good when it comes to Veer?
Yeah, you know what? I like to say that our label reflects our mine and our staff's listening taste. I've been listening to a lot of Christian music lately, and I have an 11-year-old daughter who kind of grew up on it, and so we have a lot of successful Christian artists on our record. Love country music, love rock and roll, love Americana, love singer songwriter. Those
Hmm.
are those are the records that we've been putting out. We have kind of I I think that the fact that we are not genre specific has been a big plus for us because it doesn't shut any doors. You know,
Hmm.
we're willing to and able to help anybody. And the great thing about the Nashville music scene, I have to tell this people that aren't in the music industry that don't understand this. Nashville is called Music City. It's
Hmm.
not called Country Music City. And a lot of people think that the only thing coming out of Nashville these days is country music, and it's just not true.
No, sir.
There's so much great rock and roll and Americana and Christian music coming out of Nashville. So it's a great place to have a label like this. But no, I love that we aren't genre specific, and if it's good, I'll listen to it.
So the last, adding this before I ask my last question or topic to you is what you just said about Nashville. I find that everyone from the Sunset Strip and hard rock that was LA based has moved to either Vegas or Nashville in the last 10 years. All the metal people seem to be in one of those two cities.
Yeah. Um, I saw a billboard in Nashville a couple of years ago, and it was at Christmas time, and it was a big billboard of the Grinch, and it
Hmm.
said "Get out," and it was like, man, everybody keeps moving to Nashville from all over the place. But I think from a music perspective, if you are like John Waite lives here, you know, like
Hmm.
people like if you're a songwriter and and you want to be able to write with the greatest. Jonathan Cain lives here. Like if you Kevin Cronin from REO Speedwagon lives here. Like if you want to write with people in this community, and it's the world's best writers are within a mile to 2 and 3 mile range, and the greatest publishing companies and the most creative A&R people at publishing companies putting together this blend of older proven talent and these young up and coming majorly expressive young kid songwriters that have a lot to say. And when you can blend those two, and I mean there's creativity everywhere. So I can see why this would be an attractive place for a musician, a songwriter, anybody to move to. And I mean, you mentioned Doc McGee earlier. Doc lived here for several years, and
Yeah,
um, so there's just there's a big migration coming to the Nashville area for sure.
sure. The last question for you, as a lifelong music fan, what was your gateway band from just being somebody who listened to the radio and didn't pay attention to who wrote and produced and was playing on the songs to the person who actually cared about that stuff?
You know, everybody's got their Beatles story, and I love the Beatles and grew up on the Beatles, and that was probably the first band that I truly loved. But there's two bands really that I feel like are why I'm in the music industry today, and the first is maybe not so obvious. The second is very obvious, but the first is the Mamas and the Papas. Like
Hmm.
when I was a kid, and my dad and my mom were listening to the Mamas and the Papas records and Monday Monday and like stuff like that. The harmonies. I just love that music. It was so great. The other is when Elton John came out with Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboys. I got that record and I listened cover to cover for a solid year. Like there almost wasn't a day that didn't go by that I did not listen to that record. And that's
Sure.
just rock and roll at its essence and beautiful songwriting and Bernie Taupin's lyrics. Like it was just amazing. That was an amazing record. I still listen to it cover to cover these days. And so that really the Mamas and the Papas, Elton John, the Beatles, like all that was what that's what propelled me, and it just never stopped.
Putting the Harmon in harmony. I'm sure
There
I'm
you
the
go.
first person who's ever made that connection. But the bottom line is thank you for the decades of great art that you've helped fostered, and really looking forward to
Thank
what's
you.
to come from Veer and your team. I believe it's Paige is the other person on the team, correct?
Paige Heineman and Kaylin Townsend. Yeah, we have a 3-person staff.
Looking forward to what you kind people are putting out into the world. And again, thank you for your time, Rusty.
Darren, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Paltrocast.